Howdy folks, and welcome. Today I am wearing green because we are going to be talking about the history and the origin of the dragon. This is a subject I'm extremely familiar with. Originally I was going to do my thesis on the history of dragons and the change over time and the effect of it on the European psyche, this mythology. I have had to translate things that have never been translated before into English in order to do this research. Suffice to say, if you're interested in dragon myths, this is the video for you. So don't turn it off, don't stop watching. For whatever reason, and this is what attracted me initially to this, a creature that has believed to exist for at least 4,000 years, right? People believed in this thing, in the dragon. And of course, there were no dragons, right? Or were there? This is where it's going to get interesting. There are two big reasons for these dragon legends and myths, and they're based on two very real things. One, dinosaurs, okay? This may seem obvious. People have talked about this and espoused this theory that the idea of dragons comes from the finding of dinosaur bones. We've actually poured through that and found the evidence to actually prove it, all right? And nobody thus far has done that before, so we're doing that today. The Greek historian Solonus writes in 200 AD, "In gullies and ravines, people discover bones of immeasurable enormity." Pliny the Elder writes of the discovery of ancient giant bones of Orion on the island of Crete. Augustus, the Roman emperor, is noted to have collected gigantic bones and put them on display in his palace in Capri. They are finding bones, right? Paleontology, this is not a new thing, right? People have been finding dinosaur bones for a very, very, very long time. And they're going to come up with all sorts of ideas to try to explain these things, right? When we think of science, science is ultimately man's best understanding of the world around him. And so when we look at this ancient science, people are coming up with these bones and trying to put them together. Oh, this must have been a bone of a giant man, right? This must have been a giant, or this must have been a griffin, right? Look at the odd shape of the bones. This must have been a bird-like creature, right? Or a dragon, right? Or a great world-ending beast like Leviathan or Behemoth or the Kraken, right? Or Achetus. Herodotus is going to write on the ancient discovery of the giant palace in Rome and the giant Orestes in Arcadia, right? They're finding these giant bones and they're saying, hey, this is a giant, right? Pliny is also going to discuss finding the bones of Orion on Crete. St. Augustine is going to write in the City of God of a discovery of large bones that he surmises must have belonged to an ancient giant. And Virgil writes of colossal giant bones in Georgics, right, of bones that have been discovered. There's even more evidence, right? In 300 BC, historian John Q noted in his book, The Chronicles of Huayang, his discovery of dragon bones in Shushan, right? In Austria, an enormous skull, long thought to have been a slain dragon, was later revealed to be the skull of a prehistoric rhinoceros, right? The Wawel Cathedral in Poland holds the bones of the dragon Smok Wawalski, right, which are now believed to be actual mammoth bones. In England, we can see that the tomb of the Bishop Richard Bell, dating from 1496, has engravings of what are supposed to be dragons on them, but they look almost exactly like an Ankylosaurus or a sauropod dinosaur, right? A footprint of a Triassic-era Archosaurian was found and preserved in England and was actually placed in the stonework of Christ Church in Cheshire. In Sussex in 1614, dinosaur bones were found and described as dragon bones. In Africa, we could see cave paintings in Lesotho depict an ornithopod dinosaur, right? Indicating that local tribes had found this creature's fossils. In Brazil, there are going to be found numerous dinosaur tracks on a rock in Paribia, right? And there are native carvings and petroglyphs around the tracks of the beast, right? Of the extinct beast, indicating that these people did discover it and they took an interest in it, right? That early man was able to find these things and determine that, hey, these are reptiles, right, is remarkable. It's remarkable. And equate them to dragons. Now, some people thought dragons could breathe fire or fly or spit venom. The human mind conjured all these sorts of answers to what was then unanswerable questions about these ancient creatures that once existed. When we look at particular dinosaurs, the skull of the Dracorex, right? Draco really dragon, right? It resembles many interpretations of the medieval dragon. So it had previously been thought that ancient peoples had absolutely no knowledge of dinosaurs whatsoever. That's clearly not the case. We've shown a litany of evidence that they obviously have quite a bit of an understanding of dinosaurs, and that understanding is the dragon, right? and obviously they've produced what is effectively the earliest classification of dinosaurs. And to show that they're really are on the right track here, we could put together in both bestiaries and pictograph, it becomes obvious that these Europeans did not deem the dragon an individual species, right? But an entire clade of creatures, right? Very similar to Dinosauria, right? Types of dragons we can see in bestiaries, such as tetrapod dragons, that with 2 legs and 2 wings, match the description of many of the winged beasts of Dinosauria. The structure of the wyvern bears a similarity to the pterodactyl, right? And the feather cockatrice, right? Well, it resembles a lot of the primordial terror birds, what they're called. That some dragons had horns correlates with numerous fossil specimens of dinosaurs in the horn variety. When we look at the certain medieval paintings and ideas of dragons, we can see the horn pattern on the Ankylosaurus is going to be very similar to that of many of these dragons paintings in European literature and art. This picture is called the unicornum, right? This is going to be assembled by Otto von Guericke in 1663, right? These are mammoth bones he has found, and he really thinks that he's putting this together, that he's reassembling the animal in the correct way, and this is the creature, right? He has taken mammoth bones and assembled into a unicorn. So we can get the idea. This is in 1663, right? We get the idea how hard it's going to be to exactly interpret what this giant animal was, right? When people are finding these things. In 1840, it's going to happen. James Peter assembles the bones of a mammoth into a large tortoise-like creature. Like, how did he get this idea? and their predicament should be understandable to us. I mean, when we think about this, even with our modern science, we still don't fully understand what dinosaurs are. We're still trying to solve this mystery. Did these great beasts have scales? Were they feathered? Dragons were simply ancient understandings of the fossil records of these once great beasts we call dinosaurs, right? The first modern scientist to discover dinosaur bones and correctly assemble them were baffled that they could now prove the existence of such enormous creatures. The modern discoverer of dinosaurs, Sir Richard Owen, describes, when he finds the pterodactyl, as, and we quote, a flying reptile or dragon. All right, so even these first finders in the modern era of the dinosaur fossils are describing them as dragons. They think they found dragons, right? They're describing it as such. And this is going to kick off, obviously, Sir Richard Owen's discovery is going to kick off a fossil race, right? Robert Hawkins is going to refer to his paleontological discoveries of dragons in his book, The Great Sea Dragons, right? Referring to his findings such as sternal remains of a dragon found from Lyme Regis. The zoologist William J. Broderick refers to dinosaurs as downright enormous dragons with bellies as large as tons. N.H. Hutchinson, one of the early paleontologists, is best going to summarize this phenomena. Geology reveals to us that there once lived upon this earth reptiles so great and uncouth we can think of no other word but the time-honored dragon, right, to convey briefly the idea of their monstrous forms. There's a resemblance here, and modern paleontologists are noting that, right? The concept of dragons, when we think of a dragon, has evolved since medieval times. In modern fantasy, the dragon is an enormous winged, fire-breathing beast. And while that image is certainly included in ancient depictions, in the Middle Ages, the definition in those times was much broader. Any reptile, and I mean any reptile, large reptile, including a crocodile, was considered a dragon. While the church, which was the scientific community in the Middle Ages, was aware of crocodiles and made note of them in their bestiaries, to the average medieval European, a large man-eating reptile such as a crocodile was in fact a dragon. Quite literally, a crocodile was considered a dragon. Now, we all know crocodiles are real, right? We know people encounter crocodiles. So what happens, right, if somebody encounters a crocodile? Well, you have real evidence of a dragon, right? So what once may have started as a myth of finding fossils, these giant fossils, is now being perpetuated. And the myth is gaining new life because Europeans are going abroad out into the world. They're leaving Europe. They're discovering these giant man-eating reptiles that we call crocodiles. And so the dragon myth is fully reinforced in the European conscience. Philippe de Théon, in his 12th century bestiary, states that crocodiles were often misinterpreted as dragons. John Gilliam describes a dragon behavior in his book, A Display of Heraldry. The dragons are naturally so hot that they cannot be cooled by drinking of waters, but still gate for the air to refresh them. Now, Gilliam's description perfectly describes the cooling habits of the actual crocodile, right? The crocodile doesn't sweat. It has to pant like a dog, and it releases steam from its mouth. So such encounters by Europeans with crocodiles just validated, right, their beliefs in the dragon. And under their definition and the way that they thought of dragons, to suggest that an enormous reptile, man-eating reptile, was not a dragon would have been preposterous to them, right? It would be like asserting that an owl was not a type of bird, okay? It was absurd to them. The crocodile, unsurprisingly, is related to the dinosaur, ever distantly, right? It is a carnivorous archosaurian, which means ruling reptile. The crocodile can grow very large. The largest crocodiles in modern times have been measured between 18 and 23 feet and sometimes as big as several thousand pounds. Their hide is very scaly and armor-like on top. Their bite is very strong, right? And we look at, before gunpowder, for the quelling of the crocodile, many people are going to be killed by them. In fact, many people all over the world are still being killed by crocodiles, right? Especially in places like Asia and Africa. The way a crocodile kills someone, right, before modern plumbing, and especially in places that don't have modern plumbing, you have to go to the river, right? You have to go there. You have to get beside the river, fill your your basket or what have you with water, right? And then take it back. Okay, the crocodile, the way he's going to eat a person is he's going to lie in wait, he's going to emerge from the river, grab someone while they're drinking water and pull them in, and they disappear, right? Gone forever. This, our understanding of the habits of the crocodile, is going to match perfectly descriptions of what's going on in ancient times. Herodotus states that the creature's scales are impenetrable, right? Pliny the Elder concurs that the hide of the crocodile is going to be impervious to blows. We can see in a instance in 2015 in Uganda, a man named Mubarak Batakbusi took revenge on a crocodile that had killed his wife. Right? He kills the crocodile. He makes a specially made spear that a local blacksmith helps him to, and he stabs at the crocodile's unarmored flanks, right, his sides, with the spear. It took him 2 hours to kill this thing. It took him several hours to kill this thing. And this was not a full-blown 20-foot crocodile. This was a 13-foot crocodile. The battle took several hours, right? It gives you an idea of how difficult a crocodile was to kill with primitive weapons. The Greek historian Herodotus wrote in the 5th century BC that crocodiles could get as high as 26 feet long. Now, these are likely exaggerations, but we do have to keep in mind that crocodiles as a species have effectively been culled. What that means is when something goes from being the top of the food chain down lower, their size generally tends to shrink a bit, right? As we can see with humans, top of the food chain, we're getting taller. Isidore of Seville in the 7th century believed them to be about 30 feet. And so before the culling of the species, crocodiles would be A, more numerous, and B, often there would be larger numbers of the larger individuals, right? As well as they could be even bigger. We see an incident in Africa of a serial killer crocodile named Gustav, right? Now, whether this is true or not, I don't know. It's claimed he devoured 300 victims in Burundi, right? It was between 20 and 25 feet in length. And he would come from the water as villagers were bathing or going to collect water and drag them in and kill them. The remarkable story of this crocodile, Gustav, echoes many stories, centuries, even millennia older. In Libya in 380, a man-eating reptilian creature of great size preyed on villagers as they drew from water from the river. Its reign of terror was not ended until the Roman soldier, now venerated as Saint George, slew the beast. Are we seeing similarities here between the habit of these dragons and the habits of crocodiles? Because I certainly am. Don't worry, there's more. And keep in mind, in Europe, crocodiles were considered dragons. There's even depictions of these paintings of it looking like a crocodile, St. George's dragon looking like a crocodile. And it's very likely and possible that St. George, what we have here, is St. George killing a giant crocodile. There's more instances, though. Heracles in Greek myth confronted and defeated a lake-dwelling dragon, the Hydra of Lerner. The Greek word Hydra means water serpent, right? Cadmus, the founder of Thebes, is said to have slain the Ismenian dragon, and that it had been coming forth from the river and devouring unsuspecting victims, just like the feeding habits of the crocodile. In Ethiopia, a land obviously known for crocodiles, The Mycenaean hero Perseus is said to have slain a sea monster, or Cetus. The Greek word meaning effectively Cetus, a reptilian fish-like monster with a long snout. Right? Likewise, Troy, located in what we call Turkey today, Anatolia, Asia Minor, was another region that crocodiles once inhabited. In this story, the dragon Hercules is going to end a creature's reign of terror, this reptile's reign of terror. In Rome's war with Carthage, the Roman legion was supposedly attacked by a dragon coming forth from the river. Much later on, in Rhodes, a Maltese knight supposedly slew a dragon that had been residing in a spring near a cave, right? The beast was slain by stabbing its weak, unarmored belly, perfectly describing the anatomy of a crocodile and the fact that the crocodile has an unarmored belly. Each of these tales centers around dragon slayers confronting a dragon that comes forth from the water and is preying on unsuspecting victims, drawing drinking water, right? Now, crocodiles may seem a far cry from the Hydra or Cetus of ancient Greek myth or Roman legend, but the tendency to exaggerate can't be underestimated, right? We think about it. The 2015 incident we discussed earlier with Mumbarak Baktakbusi, right? The guy who slew the dragon with the 13-foot dragon with a spear, which took several hours for him to do. That turned him into a national hero, that event did. And it shows how quickly the idea of a hero slaying a man-eating beast can spread, and how quickly these facts begin to stretch. The slain 13-foot crocodile grew in size as the story propagated. By the time it made it to England, The Guardian reported the animal's length at 20 feet, and the Daily Mail at 25 feet long, right? A 13-foot crocodile grew. Crocodile tales, dragon tales, fish tales, all demonstrate a storyteller's tendency towards embellishment. The accounts of crocodiles identified as dragons does not end at all in the ancient era. This is going to continue into the Middle Ages and Renaissance period. Marco Polo in the 13th century travels east and mentions seeing dragons in China. We know they live there, right? He describes them as ferocious beasts 10 paces in length and living in a river. In the following century, Sir John Mandeville, traveling through Arabia, described that country as full of dragons and great serpents. In Crete, an ancient Minoan tomb steel stone was found depicting two dragons, which appear, in fact, to be crocodiles. In a manuscript, illuminated manuscript of St. Margaret and the Dragon from 1480, the beast looks like a crocodilian dragon, right? A much more recent example turns up in 1776, right? When a crocodile wandered into a Spanish town of Ceuta de Mallorca and took up residence in its sewers. Its presence stirred fear and panic among the residents. The crocodile was slain by Bartholomew Koch, and its body is still preserved in a local museum, right? It is named the Dragon, right? The Dragon of Mrs. Koch is what it is in English. In similar fashion, there is a dragon in Milena that once plagued the city of Jaén in Spain, right? Its body was stuffed and mounted for many years in the church, local church there. The Caligo del Patricia in Valencia has a preserved crocodile that plagued its city in the Middle Ages, supposedly. It is still known today as the Dragon del Patricia, right? In Caceres, the Church of Ermiti del Cristo has the Dragon of Calzadilla preserved and on display. It's a crocodile. What a surprise. Outside of Spain, the incidence is occurring everywhere, right? In the Czech Republic and the city of Brunn, a very large preserved crocodile hangs above a tunnel in the city, right? It is called the Dragon of Brunn. It's believed to be from the 1500s and supposedly feasted on people in the city. In Sicily or Sicilia, the embalmed body of a 10-foot crocodile still hangs above Palermo, right? The lore had it that the crocodile haunted the Paperetto River and preyed on children before being slain. Now, whether these events actually occurred is debatable. These crocodiles might just be misremembered trophies brought back from the Crusades or as a gift from the Orient or via trade. The King of Castile, for example, received the gift of a live crocodile in the 13th century from Egyptian emissaries, and its corpse is actually still on display. Jan Zahic actually brought back a live crocodile as a trophy from the Holy Land to his castle in Prague in 1522. The crocodile supposedly lived out its days in the castle moat and was paraded around by Jan on festive occasions, right? Acquiring its name, the Dragon of Bunya. Okay, so they literally believed this was a dragon, and this guy owned a dragon. He was taking around and showing it off. Many of these legends are going to occur. Some of them are going to, many more in Marseille and Ragusa and Aix and Lyons are going to have occurred. Now, it is no secret that range of crocodiles was much larger before the proliferation of firearms, right? Previously, the range of the Nile crocodile did push up against the Mediterranean Sea, and it is therefore possible the occasional crocodile did venture into Europe, right? Crocodiles were native to Morocco in 1960. That's 8.9 miles from the coast of Spain, where we see many of these medieval and Renaissance legends of dragons and their subsequent crocodile trophy hanging up somewhere. Crocodiles are noted to be able to travel long distance over water, including the ocean, right? So 8.9 miles is nothing. In 1898, Zoology of Egypt states crocodiles lived in Sicily in the past. Klaus de Schmidt has gone as far as theorizing that crocodiles spread as far as Italy, Spain, and southern France. Not unlikely. Many naturalists are going to believe that. Contrary to popular belief, crocodiles are actually capable of surviving in Europe, right? Dr. Ian Stephen believes crocodiles could in fact survive even the cold of British waters, right? If things get too cold, if the waters freeze, they'll just stick their nose above the surface and hibernate, right? Whether any of these legends are actually true, right, or they did happen to have encountered a crocodile, this dragon slayer isn't really a dragon slayer, he's a crocodile slayer. Whether any of that's true, these encounters with crocodiles made dragons a no mere myth to Europeans, but living, breathing, and deadly creatures. The dragon was never merely a mythical creature in the time that people believed in them. They were always an understanding, or rather a misunderstanding, of dinosaurs or animals we now know to be crocodiles. If we think about it, the dragon is a species that's relegated to myth only because the first modern paleontologists created the new, clade of Dinosauria, rather than choosing to reinterpret and update our understanding of the dragon. If we think about it, even our childhood visions of dinosaurs will only become fantastical imaginings if it's discovered, right, that all dinosaurs were in fact feathered. And what if a new name was chosen, right, to describe the new interpretation of the dinosaur? Well, then the dinosaur would simply be a fantasy of a prior time, just like the dragon, right? The inspiration for the concept of dragons across the world is without doubt the discovery of dinosaur bones. It was European encounters, however, with crocodiles that cemented the Western belief in dragons even further. Encounters with these archosaurians perpetually spurred the creation of new legends, some at least very based on real events. Such encounters made the dragon a very real creature to early Europeans, and by their definition, if we considered any large-eating reptile, man-eating reptile, to be a dragon, then dragons would be very real to us as well. Folks, I hope you enjoyed watching this. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I am happy to answer those for you today. Fear of the dragon, if we think about it, also goes back to, when we talk about mythology, it's our humanity's place in the world, and it's very different than the one we live in today, right? We surround ourselves in these cement fortresses, right, in the cities and whatnot, and we have pacified the places where we live. We've killed the lions, we've killed the wolves, we've killed the bears, right? They're either endangered or dying off. Before gunpowder, humankind was not on the top of the food chain. We existed with things, but for instance, wolves would kill, by some estimates, up to thousands of people in Europe every year in the Middle Ages, every single year, before gunpowder really became prolificated in Europe, right? So this idea of a monstrosity, of something even bigger or greater than a wolf, or even larger than a lion, is really terrifying, right? Today our fears are like about the economy, like we fret about the economy, or we fret about, you know, things that are artificial, if that makes sense. We fret about how much coins are in our wallet, or what the stock market's going to do, things of that nature. And those are real concerns, but they're artificial ones that humankind has created, right? Even the idea of money. These people were more rooted in the natural order of the world. And when I say the natural order, I mean the idea of the food chain, and that humans were in fact a part of it and on it. So finding bones of an enormous animal, right? You know, if I find a 10-foot long bone, femur, I'm going to freak out back then, right? That's something that's going to terrify you, because you don't have a real good understanding of paleontology or archaeology, and really nobody does yet. And so they don't know how old the world is. They don't know what is it. These bones have been fossilized after all. They're not going to look, you know, necessarily super ancient. So why is it, you know, these giant bones of this creature have been discovered right here? Could there be more of them around? You don't know that, right? You don't know if it's been dead for several years or centuries or how long, right? But it keeps alive the idea of the monster, okay? And the idea of a monster is very real. I mean, people back then would really avoid venturing near a certain forest, or part of a forest, or by a cave, or by this mountain pass, because there was a legend of a dragon being there, right? People actually avoided that. So the dragon really was real to these people and did affect their daily lives. Yeah, so folks, I hope you enjoyed this and found this enlightening. I'm going to put the link to the article I wrote on this, which is going to include even more evidence and information than we could put in this video. I hope you enjoy this, and again, if you have questions, please comment, and I'm more than happy to answer them. Thanks, and have a good day.